Hi there. Welcome to Bonzoleum story, I think it's 12 or maybe 13. Bonzoleum stories. Okay. The Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Formerly located at 1030 South Wacker on the west side of the street. A big sort of magenta-colored building. I spent 1992 to 2001 being a deck holder in the live cattle options. It was a pretty high-stress gig. But let's talk about the CME, or the Merc, as we lovingly used to call it. If you see the Blues Brothers, the original movie, 1980, I guess, shot in 79, there's a scene where the Bluesmobile goes up Lower Wacker Drive exit ramp, clips the top of a Chicago police car, in the air, and then goes back down the entrance ramp to the southbound Lower Wacker Drive, the good old days. And I think the lights in Lower Wacker in those days were green. The original Mayor Daley the first, 1955, 1976 maybe. The lights were green down there. It was kind of cool. We used to call it like the Emerald Tunnel. Anyway, so that scene in Blues Brothers where that cop car gets clipped, that literally is Monroe Street. Okay, that was Monroe Street. And I crossed that street, as so many of us Merc people did so many times. That was walking east from the Merc. There used to be pizza trucks out there in various trucks. And I ballooned from about $1.55, 155 pounds, or one double, to about 195 in about 6 months due to the 2 pieces of pizza I'd eat every day and a can of Coke. So, I started at the Merc, I said, in 1992. Had a friend who got me in down there. I ran for a summer. And I was immediately promoted due to straight-up patronage, that type of thing, to a deck holder in the cattle options. It was bizarre. And I have a lot of stories here. A quick shout-out to, rhymes with Flom Flossie. Who else would I? Numerous people. I can't even. I used to work with a guy. I don't even know where to start. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It truly was. So what happens on the Merc? Okay, so when you're on an exchange floor, right? Everybody, it looks chaotic. Everyone's sort of facing each other, shouting at each other. Each individual person there is trying to make contact with another person so they can then shout or use hand signals to trade, to buy and sell things. Okay, that's the whole gig. So everybody's screaming to be noticed by somebody. God, I never thought I'd say it. It was pretty terrific organized chaos. I remember being down there and thinking to myself, really with computers, I was surprised it actually went on as long as it did, open outcry. But anyway, so I started down there, and I remember what happened was, it turned out that I had gotten the job, and for whatever reason, I was trained for 3 days for the job, and that consisted of me sort of observing for 3 days. And it was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, July of 1992. I'll never forget one of the locals, which was a trader who traded for himself, okay, standing next to the broker with whom I worked. My broker turned around, he's like, how many we got at double? And I was like, 30. And I remember the trader from the back, his brother was pretty famous, it turned out to be, turned to the broker I was with and said, on Monday, I'm going to fuck you. Which was a ominous portent. Okay? Oh my God, it was insane in the membrane. Meaning that we did a lot of business, right? And with Dudesicle behind him being his assistant, it was going to get ugly. Oh my God, that was a long weekend. So Monday on, for a good year or two, was chaos, okay? It didn't dawn on me till years later, and I'm not kidding, till about 1999 or 2000. It dawned on me that every other trainee we had come through, the options clerking part of to do what I did, we trained them for several months And they wouldn't even get near the live cattle options for several months. I'm not sure what the hell happened there. But anyway, so there's numerous stories. The Merc was really cool in a certain way. Like, there was a thing where they just throw paper on the floor. Like, things were so busy, you just drop stuff on the floor. There was paper all over the floor, and you'd see some people literally make it or break it. I mean, there'd be sometimes people who got, like, there might have been times where people, like, just like trading places. Remember where Ralph Bellamy and Don Amici, Sr., were like, taken off the trading floor and trading places? Stuff like that actually happened. It's an interesting aside. Don Amici's son, one of his sons, lived 2 or 3 houses down. He lived there with his family from us when I grew up in the town. It was pretty neat. And Don Amici Sr. apparently used to come and he'd hand out silver dollars to the kids. That's a true story. Not enough to make a Bonzoleum story, but that is in fact a true story. Anyway, so I remember a time a broker had this order, and they used to have orders called stop orders. Now, you can simplify this stuff pretty good. What it meant was if, let's say, the market's trading higher and higher, and somebody had sold something, like they're short. So every second tick, piece of money increment that goes higher, they're getting screwed. So there's eventually a price where they're like, all right, I capitulate. I get out, where they puke, they used to call it. Well, this broker had an order where it triggered that price, so what he had to do was literally buy into this elevating market. But there was a limit to how much he was supposed to pay for those. And I think it was like 1,000 lot they used to cut. Here's another story. Let's put it this way. Things like this used to happen. Oh, I remember Chris Farley came on the floor. I was there one time when Chris Farley had first achieved fame. He was on the floor. I think his brother was down there over in the S&Ps. And I remember he was sort of standing there. He was really, seemed like a super shy, nice guy. And I remember we were like, somebody in the pit was like, hey, Farley. And he was kind of like, and this might have been 92, man, 93, like before Coneheads and stuff. And sometimes people used to trip. Like sometimes you'd have a desk manager or runner suddenly realize there's a mistake, right? And they'd run for their lives into the pits. But they'd trip and be like, and they get hurt, man, sometimes. And you'd always have somebody like appear out of the crowd and they'd either do safe or you're, you know what I mean? Oh my God, it was, if you could have made a TV show, you probably could now even after the fact, on the floor of the Chicago or of any exchange like that. Necessarily, the New York Stock Exchange, these, folks sort of walk around with each other. They go up to, it's a different concept, you know what I mean? But on the floor of a commodities exchange, like if you watch Trading Places when they're in the pit, it's kind of funny to watch, but it was kind of like that, And I was fortunate enough to work for a group of brokers because what we did is we executed orders for other companies like Cargill, Iowa Grain, R.J. O'Brien, these types of things. Oh, my God, you could have made a TV show. Well, you know what? Unfortunately, though, you'd have to give everybody watching the show would need a primer on kind of what the deal was. And that in and of itself would take a little while. It's a shame that, like, working at the Chicago or on a commodity floor wasn't like a something you had to do. Like, in the Israeli army and stuff, you got to be in the army for like a year. If they did that for whatever reason, everybody in the United States had to be on a commodity exchange floor for like 2 months, it would have been the best show on television. Hands down. I'm not kidding. So I remember one time leaving. I was, one day I remember walking home, except that I was in the bottom of the exchange towers. There was a long sort of lobby you'd walk through to walk over to the Chicago Northwestern Station. There used to be a tunnel, like an aerial tunnel, pedestrian walkway. You'd walk through the old Chicago Daily News building, which was really cool. So on my way there, I remember seeing at the end, is still in the building, seeing a trader that was really like, I was watching Young Frankenstein yesterday, a 7.5-foot, 600-pound gorilla. This guy was massive. I don't even know how he had his red broker coat, didn't even really fit him. And there was a woman with him. He might have been 50, I would guess. And this might have been 93 or 4. And the woman with him looked a lot like, she was a short-haired, extremely attractive brunette. Wearing a very nice outfit with a lot of jewelry and literally like a mink stole. And he was sort of roughhousing her a little bit. I mean, not crazy over the top, but he was pulling the mink off. He was pulling the rings off her fingers. He wasn't saying a word. And she was like, his name might have been John, right? She's like, John, don't do this. Don't do this. I can only surmise he must have figured out that maybe she was cheating on him. So he sort of manhandles her through the revolving door and he hails a taxi and literally like stuffs her in, and the taxi drives away and he marches back upstairs. Stuff like that used to happen. And I won't get too much into that, but it was pretty crazy. And what are some other stories? So, yeah, people used to trip out safe. You know, I meant there'd be sometimes too you'd be standing there, and so I wouldn't actually execute trades. I would deal with the runners that would come up, and desk managers. So there'd be a little bit of what they called ARB speak, except in the, you know, but it was sort of like kindergarten-y sort of ARB. It was pretty much just shout. You know, we were all pretty bad, you know, like these guys things. You know, in the S&Ps and Eurodollars, it was like a first language to them. And I used to work with this guy. His name rhymed with Beth Schmeminski. And this guy was from Wisconsin, you know, and you never know, though, because he talked like you think I talk Chicagoan. This guy was like flat out Bob Chicago. Anyway, so I took his place when he went over to the Goldman Sachs Commodity Index. And there were a few times, obviously, on the front end where I didn't know what the hell I was doing, where they'd call him over. You know, Mom rhymes with Mom. Well, screw it, his name was Tom. Tom would turn and be like, Jeff, get over here, you know, take the deck from him, and take the deck. And I was like the piss boy. You know, you just sort of stand there like... And I remember what you used to do is at the end of the day, you'd lay all the orders out. So all the Iowa grain orders would go with the Iowa grain orders. All the Cargill orders would go with Cargill. All the R.J. O'Brien, all the 800 orders. Oh, my God, they're coming back to me. We knew them by numbers, though. What was it 685, 090? Oh, my God. We used to have, like, not Solomon Brothers, but a few of those that went out of business. I can't remember the names anymore. Shearson Lehman, Prudential Beige, that kind of thing. I remember laying the orders out. And Jeff, who I worked with, oh my God, Jeff used to strike fear into the hearts of numerous runners. He'd sort of turn them, and he had this, I got to back off from the microphone a little bit. He'd go, come on, like that. It was awesome. I mean, in fact, it happened to me when I was a runner. He did it to me a couple times. Like, he was a big guy, probably 6 foot, maybe like 195, you know. I just remember a time we were laying the orders out. And, you know, it was in front of a bunch of runners and stuff. And at this point, I was really kind of sick and tired of being treated like shite. Like, I figured there'd be some hazing, right? But I didn't realize that I think the people I worked with were told that I had come from another exchange. Like, I had held a deck in the corner or something at the Board of Trade. So I think they thought that I think I lied to get the gig, right? But I didn't know what they were talking about. You know what I mean? So we're laying the orders out one day, just laying the orders out. And he made some comment to me. You know what I mean? He's like, yeah, you know, you frickin' cripple or whatever. I mean, it was a term like that. Nothing again. It's strictly to demonstrate what happened. No judgment on anybody who has anything. But that was more or less the term that he had said. So I had said, without missing a beat, I said, well, somebody needs an ass kicking. And I remember Jeff stopped and he looked at me and he goes, well, if somebody wants to give me an ass kicking, I live at 946 South Canal, second foot. It was pretty funny, and that broke the ice a little bit. That was kind of nice. Those were the days. So yeah, it was a pit. You know, it was weird being down there because there were so many really smart people. There's sort of a misconception where everyone thought everybody on the traders and stuff were big jerks. They'd seem like that maybe off the floor because you'd be used to that mindset. But 95% of the 73.9% of the people were, when you're really busy and you get down there and you're really busy, there does come sort of a maybe what is perceived to be sort of a crass rudeness, sort of a curtness. But you don't, once you're there for a while, you understand it because it's just like in the Godfather, it's like it's just business. But there was a variety of people down there. They probably had like an IQ like $155 and stuff. There were some like Yale type people, usually ex-athletes that were pretty. And I'm not singling. There was a fellow in our pit from Yale. I don't want to single him out necessarily like that. But there were people on the floor. It was weird to see like almost like a sociopath, so intelligent. And they're also funny, too. I mean, it was rough, man. There were times you had to deal with people like that, like, all the time. It was really rough. And, wow. The best of times, the worst of times. Holy moly. It really was. It was, I remember there was a particular guy who worked over at R.J. O'Brien who had an ability to get under your skin in a minute, but, like, in a way that would incense you. Like, they did out trades, right? And, every day, like, he'd come over and, like, bust the balls of whoever, at least my guy. And it was ingenious to watch. And I remember one time I saw him at a bar afterward. I went with my dad. We were at a bar one time in Forest Park on the Street of Dreams, and I saw the guy across the way, and he looked at me, and he comes walking over, and I'm thinking to myself, like, you know what, I've had a long day. If this guy says one thing, I'm going to knock his block off. Comes over as sweet as you please. Oh, hi, Terry, how are you? This is my dad. Oh, Mr. Keating, how are you? Let me buy you guys some drinks. It was like a facade he developed, which was so effective. He should have traded in the pits. He would have raked in the cash. Oh my God, there's so many stories. Anybody who's been on a commodities floor with the Merc, chime in with stories below. It truly was the best of times, worst of times. Worst of times? The best of times, the worst of times. What the hell? Why am I having a blockade in my cranium? Anyway, but those were the days. It was really, really wacky. And I remember how nervous and crazy you get, like a runner to come over with an order. And they'd be like, is this filled? And you look at it, it'd be like a 20 lot, like 20 cars at a certain price, and you're looking up at the screen, you see that it traded like through you, like that should be sold, and you can't find it, right? And you're looking through. And finally in another deck. See, what happened was I was in an options pit. This is going to get long. I'll do it real fast. There were calls and puts, okay? Two types of a particular option with the strike price, which in those days was every odd. Let's just say there were a hell of a lot of things you had to do. It was extremely complicated. Once you got the hang of it, it was simple. It wasn't simplistic. Well, it kind of was simple. It was just took a certain kind of brain power to get used to doing. And I remember when you'd be held on an order, the fear that would come over. Like with people on the desks, what they used to do is all those phones were recorded. So if somebody made a mistake, like if 20,000, it was like, Bob, you got to go up. They're going to play the tapes. Like, I mean, it would be like their hands would get sweaty, like they're paler, they'd get gray, and it was like Judgment Day. And you go up to this office, you listen to the tapes, it would make or break you. And then there were the Peppers incidents. There was a period of time where like little things would happen, like somebody like, hey, you get bored out there. Somebody bring over like a habanero or like a ghost. Well, at the time we didn't know they were ghost peppers. And I remember sometimes like a couple brokers had to like leave the floor. And there was a particular time we had this guy. His name was Billy. God love him. He got injured in an accident. It's a long story. Anyway, so he brought this pepper. Well, what happened was somebody had a habanero that he ate, and he got all funky, and he was a Mexican fella. And I remember you could tell he was kind of, and I might have made a comment to him like, Billy, some kind of pepper-eating guy you are, Next day he came in and he used to talk like this. He came over and they used to call him the Mexican Wayne Newton because he freaking looked like Wayne Newton. And he came in, he had this pepper, he's like, Day. And he hands me this pepper, it's this red-looking sort of, almost looked like a salad pepper. It didn't look that bad, although it was red, dark red, like a ruby emerald. And it had these little lines in it. I wasn't sure what pepper it was. And I remember one of the brokers, there was a guy named Joe on the other side. He took a teeny little bite out of it. And, we kind of thought he was playing it up. Eventually he was gone. Like suddenly the other broker, like he had to go home. And so for whatever reason, I remember I ate about a half of it, I remember. And I remember standing there. It was in the hotter peppers, the burn comes real slow, but then it's inexorable. It's like an unstoppable force. You're like, so I had to run upstairs. I remember handing my deck off to somebody over in the feeder cattle and running upstairs and running into the break room. My brain, I got 5 or 6 milks. Remember those little containers of milk in a cardboard thingy? I got like 5 or 6 of them. I carried them in the bathroom, sat down on the toilet, closed the door, and guzzled these 5, trying to get because that capsium or whatever the hell it is, it's oil-based. And it went then down the hatch. And so I remember sitting on that toilet for about 20 minutes, thinking to myself, if I throw up, some of these frickin' capsium-laced pepper seeds are going to be jammed into my sinus. It was a nightmare. Eventually it subsided. I went back downstairs. So I can't make this video too much long. I'm trying to think of some grandpappy things. But I want people to chime in with their Merc stories. Oh, the days. Kevin, Tom, the dudes, Jimmy, Murph. There were numerous Murphs. There was a Joe V. This guy was so